I'm Laura Mayk. Welcome to Battleground Politics. President Trump's agenda bill, the one the White House calls the big, beautiful bill, got the votes it needed to get to his desk. I talked to lawmakers from our area on both sides of this, one who voted no, one who voted yes. Let's start with Republican Congressman Ryan Mackenzie from the Lehigh Valley. We spoke just before the vote in the House. Joining me now is Republican Congressman Ryan Mackenzie. He represents Pennsylvania's 7th Congressional District, which covers the greater Lehigh Valley. Congressman, good to see you. I know that you are joining me after a very long night.
That is for sure, and we're about to deliver a piece of legislation that includes real significant tax relief for working families and seniors, secures our border, reforms government, and makes very positive investments in our future.
Congressman, let's talk a little bit about that. Tell me why you are a yes on this bill.
Well, the tax relief in and by itself is historic. So working families all across the board, every American is going to see their taxes lowered. So that's a significant positive reform. Working families, whether you're a tipped worker or somebody that works overtime, those individuals are going to see a benefit. If you're a senior on Social Security, 88% of seniors will now pay no taxes at all. An additional 14 million seniors are going to see that tax relief. And then you're going to see things that I've talked about for a long time, like an expansion of the child tax credit, doubling that and actually making it go up with inflation as well over time. So these are significant reforms that are going to put money back in people's pockets. And we know so many people are still struggling with high prices because of inflation over the past number of years.
A big part of this debate has been over the Medicaid issue and the changes to Medicaid. Do you expect that people in your district will lose Medicaid coverage as a result of this bill?
It's really important to recognize the changes that we're making this are actually going to protect and ensure benefits are there for the vulnerable populations of individuals with disabilities, pregnant women, children, and low-income seniors. That's the traditional Medicaid population. It was expanded under the Affordable Care Act, but they never put in place a work requirement. So that is the most significant change that we have in our system and in this legislation is that a work requirement is going to be included, just like every other major human services program out there in government already. So able-bodied working adults will now have to either be in a job, be in a training program, or actually even just volunteer part-time in their local community to maintain eligibility. That's something that is in place with all of these other programs. So individuals that are going to need these benefits, we want to help them get into those jobs or volunteer opportunities so that they can maintain their eligibility if they so choose. Other positive benefits in this system are $50 billion of investment in rural hospitals and hospitals that are struggling all across this country. And so that's a positive investment that actually is going to help bolster the healthcare system for individuals with Medicaid.
I understand the changes that you described, but do you think that the result will be that fewer people in your district and in Pennsylvania will end up having Medicaid?
I think what you're actually going to see is individuals who get off of Medicaid and into a job, they're going to actually receive private care coverage, which is actually better than what they could receive on Medicaid. So I think this has a very real opportunity to strengthen health care for a lot of people in this country.
Tell me about what the conversations were behind the scenes on this. We've watched it play out from here and watched what's been happening in Washington, and you represent a sort of purple district that's going to be in the spotlight in the midterms. What kind of pressure did you feel during this process?
Well, I think we were actually able to deliver legislation that we've talked about for a long time on the campaign trail. Again, historic tax relief, securing the border. The border will receive an additional $150 billion of funding over the next 10 years to make sure that we keep our communities and our country safe and secure. Our military is something that's been so depleted and neglected for years. An additional $150 billion of funding for the military is included in this legislation. We've seen recently concerns about the air traffic control system, another system which was neglected for far too long, $12.5 billion of funding for the air traffic control system, and then that rural hospital funding that I talked about. So these are all the things that we talked about actually doing on the campaign trail, and now we're delivering for the American people.
Governor Shapiro has raised concerns about whether Pennsylvania will be able to backfill the costs for things like Medicaid, which we talked about, and also for SNAP. What's your response to that?
Yeah. Governor Shapiro, unfortunately, is running a really lax enforcement system for SNAP. There are far too many people that are getting ineligible payments or overpayments, and that's measured by something that we call the error rate. So Pennsylvania has an error rate around 10% now. It's been as high as up to 16% last year. That is far beyond the norm. And so what we're saying is, as somebody who has no skin in the game right now, we want you to bring that error rate down to less than 6%. Make sure that those individuals that really need the help and benefits are the ones that are receiving it, and we aren't wasting taxpayer money in these overpayments and payments to people that aren't even eligible for the program. But so Governor Shapiro needs to fix his system. And if he does that correctly, if you're below 6% error rates in our legislation, there will be no change to your funding that you're going to receive in the state. That's something that a lot of other states have already achieved. So Governor Shapiro actually needs to improve his performance and the effectiveness and efficiency of the SNAP program in the state for those that really need the help.
Did you hear from President Trump at all during this process personally?
Well, so I've actually just spoke with the president yesterday. We've been able to speak with our leadership, and the president, even our senator, has been really engaged throughout this process. We've had wonderful discussions where we've been able to contribute, offer our own ideas, make suggestions for changes. So it's been an open dialogue throughout the entire process.
I know President Trump was engaged in this process. What was President Trump's message to you? What was that conversation?
Well, he talked about the real significant growth potential that this legislation is going to provide. That's what he's focused on, is growing our American economy. And he said this economy is absolutely going to take off when we provide these lower tax rates, not just for individuals, but also small businesses. They get 100% expense deductions right away, immediately. They get to deduct their R&D expenditures. Those are two things that making businesses want to invest, want to grow in our country. And those are going to be things that are permanent now in the tax code. So he's talking about growth, the opportunity that lies ahead for the American economy. And I think we're going to see that as soon as this legislation is passed.
All right. I know you have a busy day, so I'm going to let you go. Just one more thing. You are, as I said, heading into a midterm election in a competitive area, a sort of purple district. Are you comfortable running on this bill?
I think what we talked about on the campaign trail in 2024 is what we're delivering now on in Congress. And that's the way that you're ultimately measured at your next election, is were you able to fulfill your promises? That's what we're doing with this legislation. And we are going to be talking about all these positives that we're delivering for the American people next year.
Is there anything in the bill you're uncomfortable with?
I think we put together a great package, a great piece of legislation here. Again, historic tax relief, securing the border, reforming government, investing in the future. In every one of those categories, positive changes for our country and for America.
Congressman Ryan Mackenzie, thanks for joining us. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Shortly after the vote, I talked to Congresswoman Madeleine Dean from Montgomery County. She's a Democrat and voted no on the bill.
Congresswoman Dean, it's great to see you. Thank you for taking some time on what I know has been a busy 24 hours.
It's been, yes, a busy 48 or more, but worth the fight.
So as we're talking, this bill has now passed. You voted no. Tell me why you think that this bill was not the right choice.
Oh, thanks for asking, and thank you for covering this. I know you're busy yourself. My question these last few weeks was the kind of the opposite, rhetorical opposite, which is, why would anyone vote for this bill? What in here can you go home to your constituents and say, yes, we are throwing 17 million people off of their health care, whether it's Medicaid or ACA or CHIP. Imagine that's something, that's one of the hallmarks of this bill, 17 million people. How about millions of people who will lose their nutrition benefits, SNAP benefits, taking food literally from seniors, from children, from folks who have family members with special needs, from folks who are working and not able to make ends meet. The other thing is, what is it all in service of? It's in service of getting tax breaks, continuing very deep tax cuts to the wealthiest, the 1% and above. And then the other thing that is so historically disastrous is what it does to the deficit. Some estimates have it as blowing the deficit up by $5 trillion. So my question has been, what's in it that appeals to you? I do not understand the courtiers of the president, the Republicans who voted yes for this bill. I don't know what they say to their constituents, seniors in nursing homes, wondering if they're going to be able to keep their bed in a nursing home, folks with special needs children, either at home or in daycare and other care. Are you kidding me? Folks with special needs children in schools. This hurts constituents. In Pennsylvania, these numbers are staggering. Probably 400,000 Pennsylvanians are at risk of losing their health care under this big bill.
Let me dig into that a little bit more, because one thing that this does change is put some work requirements in for Medicaid. A Kaiser Family Foundation survey found that a majority of people said they were in favor of the concept of work requirements. What is wrong with the idea of putting a work requirement on there?
Well, I'm glad you cited the Kaiser Family Foundation, because their research shows that those who are on Medicaid, 92% of them are working. I'm not talking about the senior population. I'm not talking about the disabled. 92% are working. So that has been a ruse. And I find it offensive, frankly, that the Republicans continue that lie, that we just got to get these people working. That's going to save America so much money. It's not true. They are working. They're trying to make ends meet. They're taking care of children and seniors and disabled folks or special needs children. So it is a repeated lie by the Republican Party. In effect, what this actually does, we know what the ambition here is. It's to throw people off so they don't qualify for Medicaid because they get tripped up in the paperwork requirements. That's what it is. It's not a work requirement. They're working. It's paperwork requirements.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I want to ask what you do now regarding that, because this bill has been passed now. So do Democrats now work to make sure the system is efficient in a way that people don't get tripped up, that paperwork does not become a problem? Do you dig into that and work on that now?
Take a look at the bill. If the Republicans and the president thought this was such an important move for the country to kick 17 million Americans off their health care, think of the outcomes here. Think of the economic disaster that is. If they thought that was such a valuable and powerful, correct thing to do, morally correct, civically correct thing to do, you would have made it effective pretty soon. Not in this case. They're making it effective after the next election cycle. They know exactly that it is incredibly unpopular, but they have made their constituents extraordinarily uneasy about whether or not in the future they will be able to continue to qualify. Everybody wants these programs to work more efficiently, but I think about literally seniors in nursing homes. My own in-laws were in a very humble but very nice nursing home at the final years of their life. They had worked hard for their families in this country. They contributed. And so what a relief at the end of their life when they were no longer able to stay home. They were able, through Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, to have a decent place to live, to get medical care and attention, and to age with as much dignity as possible. That is entirely at risk now.
Given what you said in terms of the timing of when things go into effect, do you think that this is still an effective tool for Democrats in the midterms? Can you make the case to people who aren't feeling the impact yet?
Yes, absolutely. But I will tell you, my constituents are keenly aware of where this is headed. Our phones have been ringing off the hook. Yesterday, it was ringing so much, everybody was pitching in. I picked up the phones while we were waiting to see whether we were voting or not. People are terrified. They're scared. If you heard, and so they were very relieved to know, and most of them called me to say, Matt, I have a strong sense you will be voting no on this big, awful bill. And I assured them I was. They already know where this is headed. But to your second point, will Democrats be able to use this effectively? I hope many of my constituents listened to some of Hakeem Jeffries' more than 8 hours of magnificent argument. He told story after story after story of actual constituents in different districts across this country saying what a lifeline Medicaid has been, what a lifeline SNAP and nutritional benefits are, and how devastating, life-changing, and potentially fatal these kinds of moves are. Will we be making that case to the voting public over the course of the next 18 months or so? You better believe it. We will hold these people to account for this vote that is in service to the wealthy and to a would-be king, the president who wants to think of himself as an emperor, and at the disadvantage, the grotesque disadvantage of constituents, of working people, of poor people, of folks who are vulnerable, of veterans.
Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick, your colleague, Republican colleague, did not vote for this bill. He's in a sort of purple district. What do you think that means for him?
I think he was listening to the vibrations on the ground. That was the correct vote. I commend him for voting correctly on this big, ugly bill. He needs to continue to speak up against what this administration is doing. Too often, he has been among what I refer to, in quoting Martin Luther King, the appalling silence of good people. Too often, he's been silent. Today, he cast the right vote.
Before we run out of time, the Medicaid gets a lot of attention with this bill, but there's a lot in it. There are things in this like no taxes on tips, no taxes on overtime, things that the president campaigned on. But will those measures benefit your constituents?
Yes, even as the cost of living increases on them. So yes, good, no taxes on tips. I think that's a great thing. Think of the infinitesimal portion of the budget that this is. After all, we're talking about a budget. This is a moral document. So good that they threw a crumb in terms of tax policy, no tax on tips. Note the hypocrisy here, however. It's a temporary passage, whereas the tax cuts, the deep, big tax cuts for the most wealthy among us, permanent. One's temporary for tipped wages, and one's permanent for the billionaire class. I'm certain some of my constituents, and I will be happy for them for that, but take a look at this document. To me, it is absolutely immoral what it has chosen to do. And on the economic side, I do want to make that argument. I've been in touch with the governor, and you've seen some of his communications around this. This is a job killer. It's a job killer in the energy space. It's going to be a job killer, I believe, in the healthcare space. Rural hospitals are at risk of shuttering. They're already underfunded. And so many of our citizens in the rural space rely upon these and rely upon Medicaid. So this is a job killer. It's immoral. It's going to hurt families. It's going to hurt children. And it actually harms one's peace of mind. That's the thing that is so insidious and so cruel. Taking away health care, you know what that does. If you've had a family member who is sick and they're worried that they don't even have the insurance to go see a doctor about what's going on, it takes away peace of mind as well as our health care.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Congresswoman Dean, thank you for your time today.
Thanks.
That does it for this edition of Battleground Politics. You can find more episodes on NBC10.com, on our NBC Philadelphia YouTube channel, or listen while you're on the go, wherever you get your podcasts.